Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 8 breakdown for the regionals at Dreamhack a couple weeks ago in Germany. And I do know that I'm a little bit late with this compared to others, but I just recently got these top 8 deck lists, so I wanted to show them off as soon as I could. But I do apologize for it again being a couple weeks after the event itself. Holidays didn't make it that much easier either, but and I also kind of know that this is like the last of BT14. We have EX5 coming out in a couple weeks, and that is the format that we're going to have at our finals at Cardfest. But I do like what these lists are. I think it does show a lot of viable lists. We do have 8 different decks in this top 8, which I think is really cool, and I did want to go over them. So if you guys want these deck lists and other deck lists that I've covered on this channel and everything, go check out my website, which is linked in the description, which has a page for this one and again other BT14 events. And let's just kind of jump on into it. So we do have this one. It was Swiss in a top 8 cut, and then 104 players for this, which is a little bit on the low side. I do know that there is also a 3v3 cup happening at the same time, and I believe the pricing was better for that one. So I think most people entering this tournament were hoping to try to get an invite for nationals, because theirs is in a couple weeks as well in Europe. So I think that did kind of affect the amount of people in this event as well. But over 100 players I think is a great number for this card game too. And again, we do have this top 8, so that's why we only have top 8. If we hit 128 players, it would have been a top 16, but I was only they only did, I think, top 8 for their top cut, which is why we did for this one. But they are 8 different deck lists with Red Hybrid, Loogamon, Mirage, Beelzemon, Jesmon Security Control, Bloomlord, and Commandramon. And I think like the really interesting thing too is that even there are more archetypes, and I'm pretty sure people are going to say in comments like, I'm surprised this archetype didn't get a top, or there's like a lot of things that are viable right now, which is really kind of tells how good this format is. And just a shame that with the release schedule and with the tournament schedule and like holidays at the end of the year, we just didn't have more events in this format, because I do think it's a really good one. But we're going to go over the top placing list for we're essentially all 8 lists right for this one. We're going to start off with the first place one with Florian with the Red Hybrid. And Red Hybrid, I think, was what I thought was going to be one of the best decks in this format. It just was fantastic. It didn't like lose to anything, and it's just still very fast and strong. There's not a lot of new stuff you get for it. It's just the inclusion of the Loogamon, which I think a lot of decks really got a lot of advantage from this still being around. It just kind of presses an advantage. It's good for like kind of decks that don't have a lot of rookies already, but also just kind of like rookie rush. It just does it all. I just feel like it does it all. And in specifically hybrid builds like Red Hybrid, and we've seen it in like Security Control and Yellow Hybrid builds, where you don't really need your egg as much to go up your line, you can get this free Loogamon, and this gets a lot of value. So 2 in this makes sense for me. Other than that, we just have your tamers, we have our hybrids, and our finishers like the Emperor Greymon and the Blitz Omni. So it's pretty much known how this deck works and what the the build for it is, and I think it's a good spot. So congratulations to Florian for their first place finish there. Next up, we have Benjamin with Loogamon, and Loogamon, I would also say, is generally known for how it's set up. I think the most interesting card for this build is the Groundmon from EX3, which has the when Digivolving delete one of your opponents with 3 care less. If nothing's deleted, you get to trash 2 from both, which you do care about having cards with trashed because of this deck. So I think that is important enough for it. But with the card pool for this deck and what it wants to do, there's not a lot of room for variety, and the best slots, like most cards, are just best in slot as is, and there's not a lot of contention for it. So you do have a little room for like some additional options, like we have like a Demonic Disaster, and again like the Groundmon. But it's pretty known how this works. Most decks I think are like 45 the same with success right now, and that's kind of how it is. So I don't have much more to say, but just congrats to Benjamin for their finish there. Next up, we have Gier with their 3rd place Mirage, and I'll be honest, like I think I undercut how good I think Mirage would be in this format in general. It did get the nerf with the Mock Galgamon at 1 copy now instead of the 4, which it was in Japan at the same time. But this also was a deck that wasn't doing really good in BT13 for us, because we didn't have the training options, which like Shine was doing very good without them. And now when we do have them, I think Shine's been doing a little bit less good, but it does have also its own restriction with it. But with this, I wasn't really like, oh, why did this card get restricted? Like, what was the reason for it? And I'm really happy that it is now when we're at this point for it. So just the amount of like interaction you get with it, able to like find your tamers more consistently and get them to play. But also this Gamamon, which is probably one of the best rookies in the game, specifically for blue, but just a really, really good card for, again, like more of the aggression format. And like if you're trying to like poke a lot of damage, the the on deletion effect from this is just fantastic. So I think the deck's in a good spot. I think people are doing very well with it, and congratulations to Gier for their finish there. Next up, we have Quang with Beelzemon, and it's almost been like a full year since we got the advanced deck for Beelzemon, and it's just still like in a really good spot. It's gotten like a couple of restrictions, and despite that, I think it's still being able to do good in its own way. There's not a lot you change from this. I do think like the wisdom training does help because it does help you find your tamer a little bit easier, and you do a lot of digivolving, so like going up your chain for cheaper is helpful too. Which kind of change, like I know a lot of people are playing like Miss Memory Boost, so I think most of the people have been going wisdom training instead for it, but in general, I think it's a deck that has a lot of strength. It has a lot of ways to do like a lot of interaction, have ways to keep it your turn with the Wizardmon and also the Deathslinger, and it's just strong when you're able to go up your chain most of the way. So I think it's still a good deck for what it is. Not a lot of changing in their mechanics, but it does have a lot of good interaction and it's very strong. So this is Quang's list for their finish there. Next up, we have Chenying with their top 8 Jesmon, and this one I'd say is probably the most surprising one in this top 8. It did, lose in top 8, so it wasn't able to go, but being able to get in top 8 in general with Jesmon, I think, is pretty impressive. It does have the inclusion of the Savior Huckmon, which has been pretty much limited to 1 since its release in the English format, so this is like our first time to really play with it at 4 copies, so being able to play it and get success with it, I think is great. Because otherwise, I think a lot of people haven't really been able to find consistent success with Jesmon as it is right now. But we do have the inclusion of like the offensive training and the from Master Disciple, and with the inclusion of additionally the Sakudamon as our Digi Egg, we get a lot of advantage from our Jesmon GX. So I can tell like this is, they really want to go to GX. Like most decks kind of end up on the level 6s and stuff, with also the Ganku X and also the Craniumon. Like the Jesmon GX is such a good monster for this deck as well. So I think that's a cool way to do this. I know that the only other thing is that like it's a little bit tough to go up your chains with just how many Sistermons you have. We only have 4 of like the Bauhackman. We have the 4 and the 2, so only 6 traditional level 4s, but also like no copies of Commandramon, which sometimes I think is good to help you with your sister mods go up your chains as well. But without them, I think the deck is good. It's just making sure you consistently see that. But we have 4 Masters to Disciple, 2 copies of Offensive Training, and a lot of additional searchers for the deck as well. So I think it's an interesting one. It might be one I have to test out myself in the next couple weeks. And congratulations to Chenying for their finish there. And then next up we have Malte with their top 8 security control. And I think security control is in an okay spot right now. We do have like ironically, like the ace monsters are really good in this deck, and I say ironically because like the new mechanic is to blast Digivolve, and you really don't get access to that in these decks right now. But being able to get a card for cheap, and you never have to pay the cost if they can't get rid of it, right? Which they usually can get rid of these, but with security control and how the game works and how it plays, being able to get these bodies out and then Digivolve Maundramon to Venusmon or even like Shadow Seraphimon, I think is in a good spot. So other than that, like Tamer Destruction doesn't exist as heavily as it has before. There still are some instances of it. Death Xmon I don't think is around as much, even though we do run it for this one. And I think not as many deck, like you can get rid of a lot of different cards with the arsenal that we have traditionally for security control right now, and I honestly feel like there's living like less cards with protection too, so they're really susceptible to it. But anyways, depending on how you feel about security control, it's here, and I don't think that's too surprising for where we're at. So congratulations to Malte for their top 8 finish there. And then next up we have Nico with their top 8 Bloomlord. And based on the events that I've covered in the last couple of weeks, I feel like Bloomlord hasn't been doing as well as people have been predicting it's been. It did get like a good boost from the wisdom training, or sorry, the agility training. I think it's a card that helps out this deck a lot, which is true, but I think it might be where the training options are helping the other decks a little bit more. But being able to have additional like the new Mimi, which lets you get like an additional like on search and get another like way to go up your chains a lot easier, I think is great. The top end of like Bloomlord, Hydramon, and Quartzmon is still very strong and scary if you're able to get to them. which is not always the case, but I do think that's important. We also do have the Lilymon Ace, which has the Blast Digivolve of, or being able to do that, but the on-play one Digivolve and to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. Then you may return one of your opponent's suspended Digimon with 5k DP or less to the bottom of the deck. So I think that's fine because we do have a lot of ways where we can end on level 4s, especially with how like the deck kind of swarms them out. So being able to have these Blast Digimon I think is really, really important. Other than that, I don't think like Commandramon hits as many decks as it used to. It does hit some cards, but not as aggressive, especially like I think like All Force, which was fringe meta, got hurt by this a lot, but it's not really around right now as much. And most other decks I feel like have a way to get rid of quartz, which wasn't as much of a case I think a couple formats ago. But other than that, I think the deck can be strong. It is dependent on finding your chains and finding them at the right times, but it's still a viable deck in its own right. And congratulations to Nico for their finish there. And to wrap it up, we have Patrick with their Commandramon, and honestly, this is one of my favorite decks from this format. It's been Commandramon's been a format or like an archetype for pretty much the conception of this card game, like pretty close to it, and it just has like this really kind of fun idea of like being able to play these Commandramons, get value from them, have them like kind of swarm the field and get those additional advantages for them. So honestly, this Commandramon rookie is in a really good spot, being able to not only search something, but having the inheritable, you can prevent something from leaving play. So I think that's good in its own way. The Satsuki with like the mind link is an interesting mechanic that I think this deck can take advantage of. It is a little bit frustrating with like the reboot only happens if you keep it underneath it, but that's I think still fine in its own way. And like the DCD bomb is honestly a very good option that I hope more decks are running. I think twos. I would be really tempted to run 3 or 4 of this card, but it does help you out with getting rid of cards, but also setting up your kind of additional plays from there. But in general, I think this is a really fun deck. I do like what it does, and it's really interesting to see both Death X and Quartz at the top end, since this can Digivolve off of a black level 6, which we can cheat out with Darkdramon. So being able to Darkdramon for 3 and then like attack and like go into Quartzmon seems like a silly play, but also can be strong if you have all the setup for it as well. But that is the list here. Congratulations to Patrick, and that's going to be the video for us. So pretty quick run through, but I did want to kind of go over these deck lists for you guys. And again, this is going to pretty much be my last event for BT14. We have EX5 coming out pretty soon, and that is going to be the format for the next couple weeks as well. So I'm going to look forward to that. Let me know what you guys are thinking for the EX5 format, and that's going to be it for me. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.